And when we evaluate business for funding, and by the way, there's a lot of funding in Kenya.
There's a lot of funding in Kenya.
For a fact, in 2023, Kenya received the highest funding for startup businesses.
Hey, Maze, asante sana. Asante, thank you for joining us for another classic episode of the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori. We have a great show lined up for you. In our last episode, I mentioned a gentleman who I met. I can introduce to a very interesting concept. Yeah, why some people work so hard and they will never make money, while there are people who, however hard things get, they will never feel the pinch of the hard times. Aliniexplainia akaniambia inaitwa the capitalism cycle. Capitalism cycle. You're either inside or outside. Ukiwa inside, how do I feel pinch? The good news is he agreed to come on the show and share more details on that with us. He's a business strategist, an advocate of the High Court, but anajua biashara inside out. Ed is in the house. Wazi. Asante sana. We'll be talking to him in a bit. But first, Bazi, barely 2 weeks after President William Ruto announced that content creators, specifically Njugush na Butita, earn more money than his salary, the president himself has become a content creator. Maze, just this week alone, ametoa collabo na Guardian Angel. He briefly joined the FBI dance crew on stage. Alafu, akaenda akaanza kufanya acrobatics with the Sarakasi acrobats. Alafu utasikia some Kenyans complaining that for the past 10 months they have not seen President Ruto performing. Yeah, Maze. Some people think that this was the president's first acrobatics performance. No. According to in fact, most people, acrobatic moves consist of kuruka, kutwist, na kukula moto. Nani hajaiona video ya president akiwa amekula moto?
Wacha kunijibu, unanijibu kama nani? Kama umeleta kisirani kwa hiyo mkutano utoke.
Exactly, manze. Alafu on the acrobats video, people are curious about where the president alitoa courage ya hizo stunts, manze. Well, it's very simple. His Excellency alijua kutoka kitambo akiwa na support ya hustlers hawezi anguka. Yes. Alafu, is it just me ama hata nyi pia mmeona acrobats ni kama wao ulipa tax na manguo. As in, look at how they are dressed. Angalia vile mse amevaa. He's 16% clothes. And this was during the launch of Talanta Hela. And State House was a beehive of activities this week. And one of the highlights has to be the awarding ceremony of sportsmen and women, where the fastest police officer in the country had this request.
And sisi kama athletes tunataka kutoka na chai kidogo hapa. Itakuwa mzuri.
Now, to be honest, I never thought I'd see the day yenye polisi anatoanisha president chai. Now, jokes aside, Ferdinand Omanyala got a 2 million bob surprise for making the country proud, but everyone has been talking about the 5 million shillings awarded to the 1,500 and 5,000 meter champion, Faith Kipyegon. Congratulations are in order for the team. Maze, wapi makofi yao? Manze. Did you all see the president's reaction when he first met Faith Kipyegon?
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm good.
You're so small.
Thank you.
Yeah, nilipoteza manze. Ati, you're so small. Thank you. Manze, how does this compliment work? Because ikitu ya wewe ni mtu mdogo na ikumbuka time ya campaign.
Wewe ni mtu mdogo sana hapa Kenya.
Faith Kipyegon aliambiwa hivyo akasema thank you. Now, Honorable Sabina Chege has also claimed that she lost her iPhone 14 during a scuffle in parliament. Manze, simu yake iliibiwa ndani ya parliament. You know, the first time I saw that story, ati simu ya mheshimiwa imeibiwa, I was like, Sabina Chege alikuwa anatafuta nini OTC? But no, ilienda ikiwa parliament, manze, mahali kuna ma-MP peke yake. Mnataka kusema it's true that Kenyans literally elect thieves. If true, this means that parliament is a house of making laws. And I think the matter will be sorted, and I believe it will be, because she asked Deputy President Rigiji to intervene. And that's not to mean that ati ma-MP wote ni wezi. Your iPhone 14 was just stolen by a bad apple. Na Wakenya wanapeleka history ya wizi to a whole new level. Have you heard your story ya Scrap Metal Council calling on the police to investigate dealers after a disabled man was robbed of a wheelchair in Kiambu. Mse anaiba wheelchair. How do you even steal a wheelchair? Unaiba wheelchair uende uze scrap metal. Alafu tasikia fala akisema ati hao wezi wanajua biashara. Ati mtu akitaka kuweka kitu kwa soko anataka kitu ina move. Kitu ya kuenda. Now elsewhere, another person has come out demanding a DNA test, claiming that musician KRG The Don is their biological father, and Kenyans are having trouble believing the allegations because watu wanashanga how comes these people are not looking for calligraph because they will not even need a DNA test kuprove ndio baba yao. And yes, alafu in other news, teachers from Lemokwo Secondary School have been interdicted by the TSC. I guess interdicted ni kama kufutwa job. Now they have been interdicted for storming into the principal's office and eating all the bananas and milk, then forcing the school cooks to serve them chicken meant for visitors. Mimi nilikuwa miapo kwa walikula bananas and milk. Hawa ni kama walikuwa wamejama ati principal ndiye anakunywa maziwa na wao ndio deal na mang'ombe. Now Alafu, now they've been given 21 days to come up with a proper defense, which I think is good news for them if they ate what they've been accused of eating. For real, it's good news because for them, they will defend themselves vizuri sana because we all know nutritionists wanasemanga bananas and milk who boost immunity. Now, if at all watashindwa kujidefend, then that's even better because it means they are innocent. They did not eat bananas and milk. They will have low immunity. Now, still on education, there's a video that has drawn mixed reactions on the interwebs of a man setting on fire his academic certificates. Vile nioneo sufuria mazeni kajiambia, kumbe mi usikia tu, but for the first time I saw results being cooked. Now, and many Kenyans have weighed in on the matter, especially with speculation that this could be a recently graduated student. Not sure if this qualifies to be described as first degree burns, but the general feeling, the comrade seems to have given up in these harsh economic times. So jokes aside, if this message gets to you, young sir, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It's too soon to give up. Take heart, usisare ametokea juzi, si ndio? We have a great show lined up for you. Ed is joining us on the other end of this short commercial break to help us understand why, however hard some people work, they never make money. See you in a bit. Asante sana, welcome back to the weekly edition. I'm your host, Dr. King'ori. Akileo, I'll just keep the intro short and straight to the point. Nime-study business, nime-watch videos za YouTube, nimeongea na watu wengi, but I dare say that I've not met a gentleman or a human being who understands business like our guest for this episode. Ed is in the house. Ed wears many hats. He's a corporate strategy expert wa tax. He's an accountant. He's an advocate of the High Court. Akona vitu mob sana, and I can't wait for you to hear everything that he can offer us for leo. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Karibu sana. Thank you. I promised people in our last episode that you were going to explain to us the idea of the capitalism cycle. And specifically, I promised in the area of why some people can work hard for all their lives, but they will never make money, but other people will never feel like money is an issue to them. Please explain that to us.
So thanks. It's good to be here. And thanks for even inviting me. I think for me, the understanding about money begins first by understanding the system of how we make money and how money works. So almost all countries in the world are capitalistic in nature. And capitalistic, it means that there's a system of private ownership of resources, factors of production, and so on and so forth. And in that understanding, for every shilling that you make, someone must spend it.
Someone must spend it. Someone has lost it.
Someone must lose it. Okay. So if you take an example of a cab driver, for him to make money, someone must spend it, is it?
Yes.
So, and how that system works is that it's a continuous cycle that goes on and on and on. And how poverty begins is if you kick someone out of that cycle of capitalism,
Yes.
then they become poor.
So it's more like stealing, but with something to offer. Like,
You can say so because really capitalism by itself is not it's not an effective system. Iko na shida zake mingi.
yes.
It is susceptible to corruption. It does not distinguish between money made well or stolen.
Yes.
So that so long as we're in that cycle, even in corruption, for someone to be corrupt,
Yes.
someone must give the bribe, is it?
Yes, yes, yes.
And therefore, that's how the system works.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it explains why if you set up a business that does not solve a problem in that cycle of capitalism,
Yes.
you'll work so hard and get very little.
Okay, and what determines whether someone becomes rich or remains poor?
So fast, in the cycle of capitalism and the exchange of money, there are those who are doing essential things, meaning they are providing something that everybody needs. And that thing must be scarce.
It must be scarce.
It must be scarce. So there is no way, for example, I'll give you an example. The other day, we had, not the other day, a couple of years, there was a quill business and everybody was doing it.
Yes.
It wasn't always non-profitable. Kuna watu walifaidika sana.
Yes.
Sindio?
Yes.
But walifaidika kwa sababu at the time when they were doing it, the scarcity of the product was there.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo people were willing to pay for them because there was scarcity. But the challenge of this cycle is that as more people start providing that same product, then scarcity is no longer there. And therefore, the more the supply, the lower the price.
Does that explain how when everyone was taught, was encouraged to be a doctor, to be a pilot, to be a lawyer, now we have more unemployed doctors, more unemployed lawyers?
I mean, it's a big factor. And I say this because I spend a lot of time with young entrepreneurs and I represent a number of venture capital firms. And when we try evaluate businesses for success, you'll find that a lot of African businesses are being set up by people who do not understand entrepreneurship. There are 4 factors of production. The first one is land. And in land, you'll discuss anything that comes from the land, including oil, electricity, paper, all those things. Then you have capital.
Yes.
And capital is machinery, equipment, and all those things that support production. Then there is labor. And then there is entrepreneurship as a 4th factor. So it is the entrepreneur who owns all these other factors of production. Otherwise, ukiweka land hapa, uweke machinery hapa, without someone to bring them together, then you will not have a business. So in Africa, after colonialism, we were taught to educate ourselves as much as we can. But the biggest challenge in Africa, we have an oversupply of labor.
Okay.
When you oversupply labor, just like any other commodity, the prices go down.
And that's where you came with an explanation. You explained to me that companies in the US outsource labor in India, which now means that anywhere that labor is outsourced, like if a company comes to Kenya to employ people, people will not be paid the money they deserve because very many people are available for the same jobs.
That is true. That is true. And how this works is in the space of capitalism, in a capitalistic nation, the way things are structured, they benefit those who own. Sorry, they benefit those who are enjoying the factors of production, those who own the factors of production. So if I own a company, it is in my interest to pay less in terms of salaries.
Yes.
Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for me to pay more when I can afford it at a lower cost.
Yes.
So in the global market, and Kenya actually is among the biggest exporters of labor in East Africa.
Yes.
Because Kenya has very well-trained people. But we are competing with countries such as India that have a higher population, and because of the oversupply of qualified labor, they're able to charge less. That explains why almost all American products, including our iPhones, including the Samsungs, are manufactured in India or China.
Okay.
Because the factor of labor becomes cheaper when you go to those particular places.
Okay.
Yeah? So even in Kenya, it is not enough for a young person to work hard to provide labor. So we know we overly work hard in universities, pass our exams, get good grades. how many young Kenyans are tamaking? With good degrees, first-class honors, and still tamaking. Because essentially there is an oversupply of labor, and therefore the demand for it is low. And if you get it, it's not paying as much as it would if you're in a different place where the scarcity is there.
So what do you think is the solution for the situation we are in now of oversupply of labor? How does one bridge the gap? How do you join the team that makes decisions?
The solution is in entrepreneurship. And I say a lot of young people should give up the concept of working towards employment.
Wouldn't that mean that we will have an oversupply of entrepreneurs?
We can't. Because remember, entrepreneurs can be as many as the factors of production. So,
Yes.
For example, in Africa, 30% of the renewable energy or renewable resources are in Africa. 30% globally.
Of the world, yes.
Of the world are in Africa. Then why is it that we are exporting raw materials to other countries for them to put them together into a product?
And bring them back.
And bring them back here. The cost of the phone, for example, is beyond reach for most people because it is someone has done the entrepreneurship bit of it and put the resources together and sent it back to you. Surprisingly, even in agriculture, we are exporting unprocessed tea. For example, it goes to the UK. They process it, send it back to Kenya, we buy in the supermarket. And essentially, it's because of the lack of young people joining entrepreneurship early and understanding what needs to be done so that we stop becoming a nation that is creating people to go and work for companies, but we start owning some of the factors of production.
You also said that we have an overemphasis on education, right? Where is the balance between education and success?
First, I think you've seen the guy burning certificates.
Yes.
You've seen it?
Yes.
Because essentially meaning that the paper itself is what a lot of people attach value to. I mean, how many of us attach a lot of value to degree certificates?
Not the knowledge that
No,
you
the
have.
knowledge is just a piece of paper. For example, I don't know where you come from, but if from where you come from you have challenges of, say, water, don't you think an engineer in your village can simply build a small pump and sort of that problem? Wouldn't they pay for it?
They would.
How many engineers are in Nairobi doing odd jobs?
Are you saying there are no engineers in Umoja? So ideally, going by definition, is entrepreneurship is solving problems. So there's also, in your expertise, there's also enough problems to be solved for everyone to be rich.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even right now, I mean, we all seated here because you're solving a problem, is it? People need to see what you're saying. People are entertained by what you're saying. And essentially, when you solve a problem within the cycle of capitalism, people pay for it. You understand?
So the idea is getting in the cycle of capitalism.
Absolutely. And when we evaluate business for funding, and by the way, there's a lot of funding in Kenya.
There's a lot of funding in Kenya.
For a fact, in 2023, Kenya received the highest funding for startup businesses.
And in this Kenya, we still are in Kenya where people complain that startups in Kenya don't get funded.
Bad startups don't get funded. Good startups get funded.
What's a good startup?
A good startup is a startup that is based to solve a problem within the community and is sustainable. You understand? So for example, if you set up a business simply to put food on your table, that's an SME, and that's how you define an SME. It's a business built specifically to meet a short-term need for the entrepreneur.
Okay.
But a startup solves problems in communities. Understand?
Yes.
I give you an example. For example, if in the same example of you have challenges with water in your community, if you build a startup, for example, that is able to use solar to pump water, and the community benefits, you know why you'll get funded? Because the money is not for your business only. The money is also supporting an entire ecosystem of members of your community. And you look at the startups that have been successful in Kenya, they actually run on that model. Social impact. Take the examples of Twiga Foods. People are figuring out supply chain to move raw materials or farm produce from the farm to the market, move fertilizer from the market to the farmers. I mean, why would you not fund such a business? But see, the challenge with our young people not being taught, and let's say our young people, us, our generation, not being taught the importance of entrepreneurship, we spend a lot of time reading. When guys, people have masters, but they have not solved even a problem, even one. So there's need to start emphasizing on entrepreneurship as a skill set. The same way swimming is important. The same way driving is important. Learning entrepreneurship and businesses and business development is an important tool for all young people.
Okay. The next question will come with an example. And it's tied to what you've said previously. People start businesses to put food on the table, called SMEs. The first question is, are SMEs a road to nowhere? Number one. And the example that ties to that is, I heard of a very sad case of a guy who had a shop. And his shop was so successful that he used to run float of, let's say, 200,000 shillings in a day. Like, he got to a place where he would borrow the money as an overdraft in the morning, sell the products, make his profit, and then pay back the bank. Then he got a hiccup, and the bank was after him, and it got to a place where I think the interest accumulated. They auctioned him. He went back to square one, zero. Depression, right? And this is a story of many businesses. A business that starts booming, kabisa, and then something happens, dies a natural death. What happens in this case? Is it because the idea was wrong, or the idea was for a specific time?
All right, I think that's a very valid question, and an example of why a lot of young people are struggling with businesses. So the amount of money you need to survive as an individual does not require to employ all of us. It's true.
Okay.
Or you need to survive from the day you're born to the day you die.
Yes.
Forget about the luxury things you'll do, buy expensive cars, to buy expensive houses. Yes. What you need is a basic need for you to survive. You don't need to employ a lot of people. You can actually work for yourself and actually make it, is it?
Yes.
The reason why SMEs fail is because SMEs are not meant to solve a bigger problem in society. And therefore, you'll find a lot of SMEs, and the common denominator for all SMEs is lack of structure. You get? So I run the business to sustain myself. And as the business improves, I never get a chance to ask myself, what next? So assuming you're running a business of quill. I mean, have you had anyone who's selling quills right now?
You have beef with quill, but no.
It's just an example of how SMEs work. No one is selling quill eggs right now.
Yes, it's true.
But somehow people are buying it, is it? Where did those guys go to?
Okay.
The biggest challenge is that it was never a long-term thing. It was a thing that was being done to sustain someone's livelihood. And such businesses are extremely hard to fund. Extremely hard to fund. If you're looking for funding, you must have social impact. If you're an SME, the best place to get funding is a bank. They give you a loan.
Yes.
And you run your business and pay them back. So why a lot of SMEs get to a place where they become big and fail is because they usually are not built for long-term benefits. They're built purely for
short-term and survival.
And that's a big challenge, because that's the kind of business we are setting up. Most of the businesses we're setting up in Africa are primarily SME-based for survival.
Yes.
But that's a big challenge, because then you end up being trapped in the cycle of poverty. Where you become rich, you give money to someone who owns the factors of production, which is a bank in this case. You're unable to pay the bank, they come and take your stuff. They kick you out of your cycle of capitalism. Then you start from scratch, building again. But we can avoid that if we learn setting up businesses as startups from the get-go and look at the bigger value we are playing. Then that way we can introduce more people in the business early to help you navigate some of those challenges when you get to that place.
Have you learned something? Wapi makofi ya Ed? Otherwise, that's it for the Wicked Edition. See you next week. My name is Dr. Kingori.